uh, I don't know if it's fair to call it a social network, but certainly it has some parallels. I'll ask Basco if he'd consider it a social network or not. Basco, are you there?
Hey, I'm here. Hello,
But
everyone.
do you call LinkedIn a social network? I'm not quite sure if it really is a social network, but
We call it a professional network.
perfect. I like that much more. And I live on LinkedIn. Tim and I spend half our lives promoting our SMAF webcast on there as well. So all power to you. Tell us about LinkedIn, Basco. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Let me just share my screen. Um,
Saw it briefly. We're coming. There we go. Got it.
awesome. Can you guys see the presentation? I'm not sure what's.
Yeah, we can see that fine, Basco. Thank you.
Awesome. So, hello everyone. My name is Bhaskar Bhaumik. A quick introduction about myself. I am a part of the HSRE group at LinkedIn. I've been at LinkedIn for over 8 years. Of the past 5 years of which I have been a part of the HSRE group. The HSRE group basically at LinkedIn manages all aspects of LinkedIn's Edge ecosystem. And basically this includes managing all of LinkedIn's POP infrastructure, external DNS, including the steering of LinkedIn's members to the correct POPs, as well as all of LinkedIn's CDN ecosystem. To manage CDN ecosystem, I'm part of the CDN SRE team at LinkedIn. We manage all parts of the CDN ecosystem. So today I'll be going over some critical pieces of the CDN infrastructure that help us, provide the most optimal experience to our members, and just giving a high-level overview of the entire ecosystem. Just give me one second. I'm having some trouble with Zoom going back to the meeting. Hey, I'm having some Zoom trouble here. Give me one second. So to begin with, I'd like to go over the various kinds of assets that are served by CDNs to LinkedIn members. We see some of the usual suspects here. All HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the site are served via CDNs. Member profile pictures, image shares, any image upload, they're all, of course, served via CDNs. All SlideShare media content is also served by CDNs. And lastly, all user-generated videos, whether it's video shares or live video, all that also comes to our members via CDNs. Talking a little bit about our CDN partners, LinkedIn uses Akamai, Verizon Edgecast, and Azure CDN as its global CDN partners. And when I say global here, basically, I mean all regions except mainland China. Within mainland China, we have China Cache and Quantil as our CDN partners. So coming to the crux of today's presentation, the CDN management ecosystem consists of several critical pieces of infrastructure, and within the HSRE team, the CDN SRE team is dedicated to managing all components of this multi-CDN infrastructure. This includes all related tooling, monitoring, analytics systems. The CDN SRE team is also responsible for partnering with all internal teams for their content delivery needs and architecting solutions for them. So over the next few slides, I'm going to try and share some insight into some of the most vital systems that the CDN SRE team leverages in their day-to-day. Starting with just an introduction of the multi-CDN setup. So as with most modern applications that rely on CDNs, LinkedIn uses a multi-CDN setup to ensure redundancy, to ensure the most optimal member experience, to ensure geographical coverage, to ensure capacity. And I think the benefits of multi-CDNs are widely known, especially to this audience. But it's also true that managing a multi-CDN setup comes with its own challenges, with its own set of challenges. And one of the first things that I'm going to talk about here is just the challenge of managing CDN configurations across providers. And I think in general, anybody who manages a multi-CDN setup would have run into this, that the CDN configurations can look vastly different from provider to provider, even though they produce the same end user behavior. And in LinkedIn's case, there are some CDN configurations that have grown up to a few thousand lines, and they have some unique custom implementations that are required to serve the content delivery needs of various teams within our organization. And the config management process, the deployment process can also differ significantly from one CDN provider to others. And in order to make our lives easier, our team has been working on some CLI-based config management tools that leverage CDN provider APIs to manage configurations on these providers, to manage deployments. We use ARM templates specifically for the infrastructure that we have on Azure CDN. And then this is something that we're excited about. We're trying to work with all our providers to work towards a future of using infrastructure as code and leverage tools like Terraform to kind of streamline the config management and deployment process across all CDN providers. The next challenge that I'm going to talk about is basically functional testing and sanity testing. So even when you're making minor changes to a CDN, let's say you're adding a simple header or something of that sort, you want to make sure that the end user behavior is correct and it's uniform across all providers. And in order to do that, our team has developed a tool called CDN CI that we use to run sanity and functional tests against our CDN providers. It's basically a Python-based tool that requests a bunch of assets from each CDN provider and verifies critical functionalities such as caching behavior. It runs validations against headers, including like codes headers, access control allow origin, timing allow origin, cache control headers, real user monitoring or RUM headers, and any other custom headers that you want to test. It validates compression types. It checks for popular compression types such as gzip and Brotli. In some cases, LinkedIn uses signed URLs to serve CDN assets. So the tool also verifies that URL signatures are valid and being properly handled by our CDN providers. It also verifies the inverse to confirm that URLs with invalid signatures are being rejected with the appropriate HTTP status codes. So this tool has kind of become a part of our change management process. Every time we're looking to make a configuration change on our CDNs, what we do is we push the configuration change to staging, and then we use the tool to verify that all behavior is as expected. I mean, for example, if we just look at the slide here, this is a real production asset, and the tool here is verifying some basic properties such as whether the object can be cached, whether the certain custom headers that we expect exist or not. It's trying to verify the query string caching behavior for this particular object, as well as trying to verify the compression types. So this is how we would push a change. The change which first goes to staging, where we would run this tool, verify all the tests pass, and then eventually when the change is pushed to production, we use this tool again against the production environment to verify that all tests pass across all providers. In this case, as you can see from these screenshots, the same object is being tested against both Hcache and Akamai, and the same end user behavior is being tested. So, I mean, over the years, this tool has really become, our de facto tool for managing changes. And then it has helped us catch numerous issues before they were pushed to production and before they caused any member impact. The next thing that I'm going to try and talk about is steering members to the correct CDN providers. LinkedIn uses RumDNS or Sidexis to steer its members to the most optimal provider. A lot of you here may already be aware of how RumDNS works, but I'll just share a quick intro. So RumDNS works in two phases. The first phase is the data collection phase. During this phase, beacons embedded on websites such as LinkedIn are used to make HTTP requests to different providers for specific test objects. And then real user measurements such as round trip time, availability, etc. are recorded for each provider for a given AS or network. The next phase is the steering phase. When a member makes a DNS request for the CDN domain, the DNS request is delegated to Sidexis's name servers. And then Sidexis uses a custom app to return the most optimal CDN provider for the member's AS. The most optimal provider is basically picked using the performance and availability metrics that were gathered in the first phase. But apart from performance and availability, we can build in additional steering factors such as, say, cost or hysteresis or stickiness into the custom steering applications. So RumDNS can provide the ability to steer around performance degradations, to steer around outages and availability issues in real time without any manual intervention or involvement. Another thing worth mentioning here is that similar to the CDN CI tool that I shared earlier, our team has developed a CLI tool for validation and change management of Sidexis steering configurations. So if I'm trying to change the weight for particular CDN in a particular geography for whatever reason, or add or remove a provider, we have a similar CLI tool that validates the Sidexis configs before they are pushed to production. Just to show RumDNS in action a little bit, the charts here represent the 50th percentile latency of two CDN providers as observed for a specific AS. So looking at the first chart, during the first half of the day, CDN B performs much faster than CDN A. During the second half of the day, there is an inversion of performance, and CDN A is the faster CDN and CDN B starts performing slower. Looking at the second chart, that actually shows what CDN was handed out to members on that AS. And what we see here is that during the first half of the day, CDN B was being handed out, while during the second half, CDN A was being handed out. So RumDNS was able to provide the most optimal member experience for all members on the network without any manual intervention or involvement. Another quick example, this time based on availability. The first chart represents the availability of a certain CDN provider. Now what we see here is that around 9:15 p.m. on this day, there is possibly an outage on the provider, and the real user measurements for the network indicate that availability has dropped to 0. The second chart here represents a decision report of CDN providers being handed out by RumDNS in response to DNS queries. And what we see here is that within minutes of an outage on the provider, RumDNS stops handing out the provider, and basically the member impact from the outage is mitigated again without any manual involvement from our team. Moving on to monitoring and alerting. One of the key sources of data that LinkedIn uses to monitor the health of a CDN partner is the metric APIs that CDNs provide. So our team runs a set of collector applications that connect to metric APIs provided by all our CDN partners, and collect aggregated metrics such as requests per second, bytes served or bandwidth, and HTTP status codes, cache hit and miss numbers, error rates. And these metrics are generally aggregated for each domain or each property on the CDN provider. Most of these APIs are either real time or as close to real time as possible. And then the metrics that we collect, these are emitted to LinkedIn's in-house visualization and alerting platform. The alerting platform itself ties into an automatic escalation platform that escalates to the teams on call within predefined SLAs when any of these metrics breach the threshold. Um, the graph shown here is a real graph for one of our providers for one of the specific properties that shows an error ratio. Um, Continuing the theme of monitoring, I'm also going to try and share some insight into how we leverage LinkedIn's real user measurements or RUM pipeline to track the performance of CDNs. So just a quick intro, RUM or real user monitoring is a passive monitoring technique which consists of JavaScript code that runs on the browser when the page load is complete for a member and collects performance data. The performance data is mostly connected by reading the navigation timing and resource timing APIs that most modern browsers will expose. Um, the RAM data includes measurements such as first byte time, connect time, page load time, content download time, DOM complete time, DNS time, SSL time. Um, all the collected data is sent to Hadoop clusters for offline processing, and then uh, the Hadoop clusters, once it gets into the Hadoop clusters, uh, there are hourly, daily, and weekly regression tracking reports that are generated out of it. The aggregated results at LinkedIn are also pushed into relational databases to provide fast querying and visualizations of the same data. This whole pipeline is maintained by dedicated teams called SiteSpeed team at LinkedIn. But as CDN SREs, we often collaborate with the SiteSpeed team to run A/B tests. Let's say to run A/B tests for any new features on CDNs, as well as to track down the root causes of any CDN-related regressions on the website. Um, One thing to add here is that by default, this RAM data can be broken down into verticals such as country, city, ISP, CDN provider, etc. But in our case, when we are making changes to the CDNs, we wanted to be able to figure this down in basically splice this data into more dimensions. And the way we do that is by adding some custom headers. As you may see on the screenshot here, there's a header called XCDN client IP version, which as it is pretty self-explanatory, it basically indicates the IP version of a client. Similarly, there's a header called XCDN Proto, which indicates whether the connection was over HTTP1 or HTTP2. And then based on these headers, we are able to splice the data during our A/B tests of these features. And the chart here, it's a real example of 90th percentile DOM complete time back when we worked with all our CDN providers to enable IPv6 on our CDN providers. And then during that time, you use the RAM data to visualize the impact of enabling IPv6 across these major countries, in different parts of the world. We use similar RAM charts during the enablement of features such as HTTP2. Another place where this data really comes in handy is during the evaluation of CDNs. So during the evaluation of CDN providers, we use the RAM data to figure out the best performing CDN provider in different regions of the world. So far, I've spoken about monitoring based on aggregated metrics and real user measurements. LinkedIn also uses synthetic monitoring tools such as Catchpoint and Inmon. Inmon is an internally developed tool. It's a synthetic monitoring platform. So synthetic monitoring basically allows us to emulate real user behavior with Selenium-like tests that runs from nodes all across the globe. Um, Various teams across LinkedIn leverage synthetic monitoring to monitor the respective web pages and parts of the stack that they own. But the CDN SRE team, as CDN SRE, we use synthetic monitoring to monitor some key aspects, including, say, cache hit and cache miss latency in various geographies that are prone to cache miss latency issues. Um, we also use synthetic monitoring to as an additional avenue to monitor the expiration of SSL certs. Uh, along with our internal monitoring that we have, you can never be too careful with SSL certs. The biggest advantage of synthetic monitoring for us is basically the ability to troubleshoot localized issues. You can look at monitoring data from specific countries, cities, ISPs, provider, and just dig deeper into that. This is again an example that takes me back to the enabling of IPv6 on our providers. Back then, we used synthetic monitoring to monitor network timing metrics such as DNS time, connect time, SSL, request, and response times. And then what we observed in this case was that DNS resolution was really slow over IPv6 for a specific CDN partner in a major metropolitan region in India. We provide really detailed synthetic monitoring data to the provider, and they were able to track down the issue to the lack of an IPv6 enabled DNS POP in the region. And as soon as they enabled IPv6 on their DNS POP in the region, we saw any immediate improvement on the DNS resolution times. The next component of the CDN ecosystem that I'm going to talk about is the purge tool. So as a team that manages CDNs, we often get contacted with requests to purge specific content from our CDNs. A purge may be required due to copyright violations, due to requests from members, or any other reason. So logging into all of our CDN portals and purging the content individually was not really a scalable option for the team. Has the team designed a centralized purge tool? It's a one-stop place to purge content from all our CDN providers in one go. The tool leverages purge APIs provided by CDN partners to issue purge requests and also track the status. The biggest advantage of the tool is that it supports modular architecture, meaning individual modules can be created for individual CDN providers and just plugged into the tool. This makes it really easy to scale the tool when we're trying to add new providers. Um, what the purge tool also helps us with is kind of make the purge process self-service within the organization. So teams that often used to come to us with purge needs can now access the tool and handle those purge requests themselves. Um, this is the final component of the CDN ecosystem that I'm going to talk about. This is our log delivery pipeline for CDNs and DNS vendor logs. Historically, we used to work with CDN provider support to get logs during periods of interest or during outages, and we would have to work with support to get aggregated logs. Uh, but the log analytics pipeline that we have now enables us to independently analyze CDN logs as well as DNS logs, and even open it up to other teams that may need the data. The pipeline itself, it runs completely on Azure, and it ingests raw logs from all our CDN partners. Um, Different CDN partners have different log delivery mechanisms like HTTP post or log delivery APIs or even direct S3 or Azure Blob Storage upload. So what our team has done is we've developed a set of log collector applications that ingest the high volume of log data from all the CDN partners and then massage the data as required. The massage data is then uploaded to Azure Blob Storage, from where it gets directly ingested into Azure Data Explorer. Um, so Azure Data Explorer is a fully managed big data analytics platform and data exploration platform on Azure. The log data that goes into Azure Data Explorer consists of usual access log fields as well as a bunch of custom fields that we work with the providers to enable. The custom fields are basically all sorts of request and response headers, um, including some of the custom headers that I spoke about earlier. The advantage of using Azure Data Explorer is that it supports really complex SQL-like queries. It's a really versatile platform. It supports some inbuilt visualizations, including like pie charts, like the one shown here. That is a really simple example of various content types served over a test domain. It also supports like anomaly charts and area charts and bar charts and other visualizations. It also supports, and this is something that we use, also supports visualization via other platforms, popular platforms such as Power BI, Kibana, Grafana. Most popular visualization platforms can be just plugged into the data. That's all I had for today's presentation. I'd like to really thank Dom, Eric, and all other organizers for really putting together this conference. It's been a great day of awesome learning. And yeah, if there are any questions, I can take them now.
That was an awesome presentation, Bhaskar. Very deep. I really enjoyed that. So I'm going to just sort of give a shout out to the chat room. If you've got one or two questions for Bhaskar, that would be very interesting. I've got one just to lead in with. Do you guys ever weigh up the balance of whether to build or buy? You know, has there ever been a consideration in LinkedIn? I presume you're operating at some considerable scale and spending quite a lot of money with a lot of third parties. Is there a tipping point where you might consider a build model rather than a buy model?
Um, so it's so a bit. This is something that that we keep on experimenting with, and this is something that we've experimented with in the past. But we always what we always try to do is keep. So I mean, whenever we try to make the decision, what the top priority is always the member experience. So and nothing else. So we're always, I mean, as a company, we're always trying to do what's member. We have this motto of members first. So yeah, this is something that we keep experimented uh, with as new technologies come about. But we always just make the decision on the member experience.
I mean, kudos to LinkedIn. It's one of the very few platforms I just can't remember an outage on. And I think I was the 10,000th member on LinkedIn or something crazy, because occasionally I get little emails from you reminding me of that. But I have always been impressed by the stability. And I think as an organization, I think you're diligent before you launch things. I don't consider you as an organization that rushes things. You know, as I was pestering you offline here, the live service is really exciting. But in some ways, I'm really glad you're not rushing it. I think it's a good thing to do. So